Happy Boxing Day for most of the world. And I got up and rewatched the start of the Rolex Sydney Hobart race, which, if you haven't done, is quite entertaining. You just go to Rolex Sydney Hobart Race and head over to their YouTube channel or head on right on down videos. The whole start is right there, and that link will get you to it. Pretty entertaining. It's a broadcast television level standard with onboard reporters, Jimmy Spithill riding around in a motorboat in the harbor, and some great commentary, and a lot to cover. It'd be very hard to be on the production team, but they did a good job in light conditions or lightish conditions compared to last few races. And it's pretty exciting watching the tussle amongst the 100 footers as they headed out of the bay. So that little hard position there is the lead boat right now, Comanche, and I'm just taking a look at the radar. It's cool when windy, you can enter a location. Took me a while to remember how to do it, but this format right there, what got me to it. So degrees, minutes, make sure you put a space there. That got me caught out for a while. Degrees and minutes. Obviously, we're south latitude and we are east longitude, which is positive in navigation world. And you can see that low or action from the low out to the west of the leaders. But let's go back and I would suggest I'm going to try to cover a lot right here, and because there's some cool stuff that we can do. First thing I'm going to show you is back to expedition, and let's this is the race positions. Now, what I did was I downloaded every race position from 10 minutes after the start. So I can actually go back if I change, make sure my weather settings are set to 10 minutes. Yep, they are. I can just down an arrow and go back 10 minutes. Bing, bing, bing. You can see the time in the upper left corner there, or I could be lazy. I could be efficient and go back to. I have just downloaded the latest Axis C model. Thanks to Nick White for putting that into Expedition, so it's freely available, and I'm sure a lot of the competitors are using it. So zoom in on the starting line. These are, let's put on a little bit easier chart to track everything. These are the, I'm going to turn off the weather, and those are the routing, the GFS, EC, and Axis that we did before the start of the race, about 7 hours or so before the start of the race. You can see they all want to go to some degree skewing away from the rum line, which is 180. But must be hard to remember that, and get out into the in front of that low and into the northeast breeze and rip along. And but it was going to be pretty tricky at the start, if you remember, with that low and stuff. So let's see what happened. You can watch on the race tracker, rather the YouTube channel. It's fun to watch the start of the race. But here's the starting lines down in here. This is just a guess at where the first mark was, and there we are, 20 minutes into the start of the race here. And no, they haven't cut a mark there. It's just we didn't have a position and mine wasn't in the right place. But Scallywag took the lead, and if we zoom in, there's a lot of boats here, I know, so maybe we have to be on CMAP to zoom in any further. There we go. Expedition likes to be on the right chart. So Law Connect took the track down. They had that problem with their they couldn't furl their mow, and but they ended up being the right sail. Scallywag took an early lead, and they were beating along. They were on starboard tack at this point, and then it was a tough time for the next 30, 40 minutes or so, because their question was, do you go out or do you sail there? There's the rum line down there, 180 down to here. So they are the leader on the virtual distance to the finish. Obviously was Law Connect at this point, even though they were behind Scallywag on the ladder rungs, and when they crossed going out. Law Connect stayed on the beach, and that ended up paying for him. Jimmy mentioned on the broadcast a bit of a righty from a cloud down there. The wind went south, and I think that's what allowed. I'm putting forward 5 minutes. Scallywag tacks and goes out there offshore, which is, the name of the game. The routers wanted to go out. And finally, Law Connect tacked out and a really good angle and was ahead of Scallywag. So that was just a basic right shift and good timing. Nice job by Tony and the boys on Law Connect. And Comanche stayed on the beach, maybe looking for a little bit more of that shift. And this isn't necessarily their heading here, but you can see here, Group, the 72, and Alive are almost ahead of all the Super Maxis who are investing hard in the left side here. And zoom out, and I'll just step forward 1, 2. You can see the zigzagging, and finally it looks like they connect into the breeze. Here they're doing 7.4, 6.5, 10 knots. They're going upwind there. And here they've tacked over 8.4, 8.9, Comanche 3.2. They must have just tacked. But Law Connect still keeping their bow ahead of Scallywag, even though they took that step out. 9.1, 13. They're starting to get maybe a little bit of breeze out here. These guys in here, 6s and 7s, so they're starting to pay. And here we are, 14:30. If you look in the upper left corner, you can see the time of day. So that's an hour and 30 into the start. So after the TV broadcast went, and it looks like right here, things started getting good. And if we turn on the wind, we can see maybe the wind direction now. I have the look at the black wind barbs. It says, okay, a little light easterly, 77, 9 knots. And based on what it looks like they were doing at that time, this is an hour and 40 minutes after the start, they're starting to reach in light to moderate winds. The boat's in on the shore doing 11, so that, they could still be going upwind there. It's almost target speed for those boats. They're cracked a little bit. And here we have 16 knots. 16, not doing 16 going upwind. They're definitely on their bikes. And that's when we saw the big picture. I'll turn off the weather again for a second. And I'm going to turn off the routings too, just to make things a little bit clearer. So this was the routing we did last night. And boom. And now I'm going forward, hitting the up arrow button, 2, 3, and just watch what happens here. The rich get richer, 17 knots, 18 knots, 15 knots. The littler boat's doing 12. So the distance is growing. I'm just go forward to, this is 4 o'clock, so 3 hours after the start. And look at Comanche is coming on. They're going in that last 10 minutes. They were going 10 knot faster. And you can see the gap is closing. And that just continued to pay its way out. Some of these guys they're moving okay, but look at, here's some boats on port tack, obviously. So they're not out of the woods yet, especially behind, but it looks like the boats on the ahead have more breeze, and it got a little crazy here. So obviously this weather model is wrong because they didn't have the strongest running breeze here. These guys are going slower, 8 knots, even though they're smaller boats. So back to forward to this point right here, and Comanche moves into the lead. They've been reaching along, probably beam reach or a little bit after the beam. Weather model says it's way after the beam, which is possible. This could be, those could be in 15 knots. That could be a running speed there. They've probably got a little bit of heated up, and we can see maybe a bit of a header there. 22 knots. The puff came on. Everybody put their bow down, even below the rum line there, just because that's what you do as a sailor when you get a puff, and move forward all the way to 18. You can see Scallywag turning and going back. They had a problem, started going slow back in here, and Comanche just keeps ripping. And Model World says more breeze, you get a better ahead of the low down here. And we saw that in the routings in the previous runs that we've done. So I'm just going to bring us up to the last ping I got, which was 2030 um, local time. And we've got Comanche doing 26. Yes, that's probably right. They're probably triple heading, maybe not with a mow anymore, maybe with a reef and stuff, because they have, if this model is right, they have 18 knots coming from 57, and they're steering a course of, whoops, shouldn't have done that. Coming back to time, just hitting the up and down arrow button. They're doing 171. So 57, they're, the wind angles are 120s, 115s. Yeah, they do not have the mow up anymore. They're probably reefed, triple heading, and just on their bikes and soaking wet. Law Connect, 24.8, 26. Wild Thing, the converted Botine boat, 22. And then, looking at the race further down, is leading the group. Money Penny, and Alive. Alive is in second. Whispers there. Caro, Well Sailed 52, Celestial, Teasing Machine, and No Limit are kind of in that next pack. Another 52 down in here, closer to the beach. But are they, how are they doing speed wise? 11 knots versus 14 knots. So more breeze out here, and that's what the model shows too. So things could be getting a little bit better. So I took Comanche's position and I plugged it in like I showed you on, there it is, the heart. We could zoom out. There's the race course all the way down Sydney to Hobart. And you can see this cell is moving down in here. Let's take a look at the just the isobars for a second. And this is the European model, and it's saying get in front, get in front, get in front, because it just, if we move forward in time, another 3 hours from now, this low just comes down, and where there was wind, there's less wind. So by then, by 3 hours from now, Comanche will be well down the track and probably trying to play this game. I doubt that they will go as far offshore as we saw in the routing. Why? Because if we drag it forward, let's go to noon tomorrow. Uh, yeah, a little bit more breeze outside, but boy, the temptation is with any sort of reaching angles is just get BMC down the track. But look how that low engulfs, where they're reaching right now. Now the low is, it's tricky conditions, and that's what the littler boats are going to be dealing with, is this minefield of this low as it kills the breeze, rains on them, cells, thunder cells we saw coming out there with the radar. So a tough ask for them. And meanwhile, the big guys should keep going. Let's take a look and see how they are going compared to our optimal routes that we calculated last night with older weather models. We'll turn on the Axis, the European, and the GFS. I think I ran this about 6 hours before the start. And you can see that they're inside of all these. And as you would, if you're doing 26 knots, there's no need to put the bow up with the wind on the beam and just get wet and pound the boat and stuff. They're in better current down here, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of cool stuff you can see with the race with Expedition. And I got Comanche's position that I entered there by, you could just 3606 151.18 and just entered it in windy. That was a cool trick. And then if we go to, I think, let's see if they have a we don't want line hour honors, we want, I guess IRC is probably who's winning the race according to these guys. Comanche. In fact, the big boats are ripping here. The Celestial Whisper, Wild Thing. Again, you can't put much credence in this right now because it's just extrapolating the speeds of the boats right here in the last little bit, but all the way pushing them all the way forward to the finish, and that's not what's going to happen. There's a lot of things here. So let's Celestial Whisper and Wild Thing. There's Celestial down here doing 16 knots. Good for them. I'm looking at the bottom number of the two speeds. I think that is the speed since the last ping. I get my pings every 10 minutes. If we go into expedition tracking, we can see, sure enough, there's all the position reports I've gotten, and and you can see here that I went all the way back to the start. So every 10 minutes, there's the start right there. But the key is, how do you do that? Well, you got to have some yellow brick skills in expedition with the yellow brick tracker. You can just download, instead of downloading the expedition format. When I woke up this morning, I just did 100 JSON positions, and that gives me um, the last 100 positions, and it looks like they're pinging every 10 minutes. So there's a little insight into what you saw. I'd encourage you to watch the start on the video or fast forward. It's kind of fun to watch as they beat their way out of the Sydney Harbor and then moving on into the race down the coast. So the big boats are on their bikes. I wouldn't want to be in the smaller fleet right now. It's going to be a long 24 hours now as that low moves over the course and slows them down. Whereas, and then the question is, what group of these next fastest boats will be able to stay ahead of the low? Because once you get eaten up by the low as it moves out, then the wind dies and you're out of the good breeze and you're sailing a completely different race. All right. Hope you enjoyed this. Bye.